course, as always, the spiritual seed feeds right into our speaker, which is wonderful. What a great segue to hear some little tidbits from the beautiful teaching of A Course in Miracles and the great master of love, Jesus. So I'd like to just tell you a little bit about our speaker today. And you won't find any of this on her website. I was looking for all kinds of things to say and to be very impressive. And what I realized is I'm talking about somebody that I love very, very dearly personally, and that this introduction is to come from me. And so I'll go ahead and go forward with this. Dr. Janet Lang is an experienced participant in sacred geometry, cosmometry, and unified physics, as well as a student in A Course in Miracles. But none of these abilities are her claim to fame. She's a doctor of chiropractic who specializes in restorative endocrinology. We met through unified physics under the beautiful redwood trees in Santa Cruz, California. I didn't know she was a doctor. And after my stroke, she came out to me as a doctor. She helped me recover to more vibrant health than I had experienced for years. She's an absolute master of functional medicine. She's a pioneer in holistic health and a doctor's teacher. Having taught medical doctors as well as lay people about functional medicine throughout her 40-year career. There's so much more I could say about her, but no matter what else, I can sum it up this way. Janet is my trusted friend and the one I go to first to combat that rundown feeling that used to be my constant companion. So now it's my distinct pleasure to introduce, and please help me give a warm circle welcome to one of Bucks County's best doctors and a really good friend, Dr. Janet Lang.
Well, darn, you got me all choked up. I can't speak now. Thank you. Thank you, Annabella. That was heartening. I'm one of Bucks County's newest residents, actually, as well. And I feel honored to have been asked to speak here today. I titled what I was going to speak about "Over the Edge and Back Again." Let's hope I'm back again, because I definitely went over the edge. But as Annabella said, I met her through unified physics, which is to me part of being a healthcare practitioner is delving, into how life works and the nuts and bolts of it. It kind of keeps me sane to have that as a touchstone. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a vet because I hated people. Actually, I thought they hated me, so I decided I was just going to spend my life with animals. But as life would have it, I just kept saying yes to the direction that inner guidance was taking me, and I ended up being a chiropractor, which initially I didn't even know what that was. And I didn't know how to pronounce the subjects I was supposed to take when I got there. But I certainly learned to love it and learned that there was so much more to healing than chiropractic, but it was a wonderful handle. And I started practice in 1980, and I've always been a teacher as well as a public speaker and in practice. And but I want to fast forward to about 10 years ago when life took me on a turn I never expected, because my personal life and my professional life have always been, connected. I don't know how anyone can be an effective healthcare practitioner and be a lousy person. It's like, they go together. And so the spiritual journey and the professional journey were always one and the same thing for me. And I had gotten to the point where teaching was my first love, and I decided that that's what I was going to focus on, and developed a postgraduate teaching of all types of healthcare professionals for continuing education credits. And I traveled all over the country to do this. I was sponsored by certain companies and it was to teach functional medicine, which I was one of the pioneers of at the time, because the word functional medicine didn't exist yet. And things have always been experiential for me. So after I experienced the premature menopause from hell that nearly killed me several times, I started to figure out the hormonal system in a different way, because nobody could help me with what I was going through. And I had to figure out how to help myself. And then I had to figure out how to help my friends who were coming after me in premature menopauses from hell, which tends to happen to women who are workaholics and have a lot of stress. Do you know any women like that? Yeah. So one thing led to another, and like I never planned on it, but I started to teach what I figured out how to do, and kept figuring out more, and spent over a decade doing this as another incarnation of my professional life. And as I did that, that spiritual growth became even more important, because I think as you move through time, you also have the ability to hear more of your inner guidance system, and you get it more and more that it's not you doing the healing work. It's something that you allow to come through you, and you can get better at allowing that, or you can get worse at allowing that. And my goal was always to become better at that, and not to have people become dependent on me, but to set people free in their understanding that they're the expert in the system they live in, and should be empowered to know that and not be afraid of the system they live in. And so I kind of explained what I did is, it's for those people who are told it's all in your head. It's not really you're not really experiencing what you're experiencing. So I work with people who's in functional medicine, people whose blood tests were normal but they were sick, people who were told there's nothing that can be done, you just have to learn to live with it. And my favorite of all time is, what do you expect, you're getting old? And in other words, suffering, death, degeneration, and falling apart as we age is supposed to be normal. Like, give me a break. I don't think so. I know that. I know that we weren't meant to suffer and degenerate and die and the way that we've been taught and the way the program goes. And I became extraordinarily successful in this phase of my incarnation of teaching and learning from the doctors as well. I mean, it was a two-way street, and I loved what I did. And it got so successful that I had a number of people working for me, and I started teaching other professionals to do the work that I did. And to make a long story of that short, the curve that life threw me at, I never saw coming, was the people that I worked with and the people that I was teaching decided that they would, rather than learn from me, take everything I had from me. And so that's what they did. I lost everything, outwardly speaking. All the material that I had written and copyrighted, my life's work to that point, I lost that. I lost my professional work. I lost my colleagues, my friends, my family. I lost my home. I lost all my finances. I lost almost all my belongings. I've been homeless for the past 10 years and wandering around for the first few of those years, wondering what in God's name just happened to me and how did it happen? And having this vision of healthcare professionals working together for the benefit of the patient and for the benefit of one another, and that was my vision. And it turns out, I had my identity stolen, then my business stolen, and then my reputation stolen, and then everything I had stolen. And boy, did I have wonderful reasons to feel like a victim. And the emotions that came up, I never knew were possible to come through me. I mean, I know that as a healthcare professional, if I can't if I can't walk the talk, I'm of no use. And so in the process of this happening, and I didn't see it coming, and it took me quite a long time to figure out how it happened and how many people were involved in the happening. And it shattered me. It just shattered me. And over time, the kind of emotions that came up, I didn't know I was capable of feeling. It wasn't just anger, it was rage, it was enrage, it was, I want to kill you people. And I'm like shocked at myself. And I hate you people for what you've done. And I had so many reasons to list that I could validate being a victim. And at the same time, I knew better. I knew better. Intellectually, spiritually, I knew better than to feel like this, than to have these thoughts, than to have these desires. And I had this voice that was always over my shoulder saying, you need to go through this. You can't go around it. You can't pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and become another workaholic and just move on like nothing happened. You've got to go through these feelings. And I'm like, what? Are you nuts? Did my guidance system go nuts? I have to feel the depth of hate, the depth of vengeance, the depth of wanting revenge, the depth of all these negative feelings that I thought didn't exist in me because I had progressed so far. And so I had to walk through them. And everything that I knew to do to get my business back, to get myself back, to resolve these feelings, nothing I knew to do from what I knew in past experience worked. In fact, it just made it worse. I felt like I was going down a dark, deep, greased, slippery slope. And the more I tried, the worse it got, until I was just flailing about and discovered what hell looked like. But all the while, there was a voice which eventually moved back into me. It was over my shoulder for a long time, but eventually moved back into me. That just said, you just keep moving forward. And you must go through this. You really have no choice. And I really had no choice. I would process it and come through it and feel like, okay, I got it. I'm okay now. And 2 days later, I'd wake up from a dream, enraged and ready to tear something apart. From the depth, I didn't know you could feel so much and so bad and so intense and still stay alive. That you should just like implode when that happens to you. But I didn't. I didn't implode. Well, I did get more and more out of perspective and more crazy in not being able to find my way out quickly, and less and less able to take care of myself. And I had lost everything, so I really had no place to live. And the people who had once been my friend and even my family, they wouldn't even talk to me, and I didn't know why. I couldn't find out what supposedly I had done. The taking of my identity and my business was so well crafted that I was caught long before I even caught on that I was caught. There was nothing everything I tried to do just made it worse. So as I went through the last 10 years, I started to get it that what used to work didn't work, and who I thought I wasn't. First, I thought I was this terrible person who had all these negative feelings, but then one thing led to another, and I started to find things. Eventually, I found the Course in Miracles, and that really has been my pathway out of I stopped slipping down the slippery slope and started to come up out of it, and finding out that it was like ironic that it started with my identity being stolen, and now I think that's like was a good idea. You can have it. It wasn't the identity. It wasn't who I was. I obviously needed a whole lot of experience in who I wasn't and what I chose not to be, what I kept choosing not to be, even though it had a hold of me to such a degree I couldn't. It made me crazy, and I did go over the edge, and I didn't think I'd ever come back. And then I realized that I needed to learn forgiveness, but I had no idea what that meant, really. And I knew I had no idea what that meant. It always sounded really arrogant and inauthentic to forgive somebody. It's like, yes, you did all these terrible things to me, but I'm going to spiritually rise above you and confer my, forgiveness on you, you terrible people, you. It's like just another version of the same thing. And that wouldn't do at all. But then when I found somebody mentioned the Course in Miracles, of course I had heard about it, but I'd never been drawn to it. But they said it's about forgiveness. And I said, well, that's what I need. I need to be able to forgive, but I had no idea what that meant. Now I've been doing the workbook for almost a year. Well, no, not a year, because I'm in the 200s in the workbook. And I have to say, everything that I thought, I don't think anymore. The identity that I once had, it wasn't like black and white. It wasn't like there was nothing to it, but it obviously there was something so much more that I needed to discover. And for some reason, I needed to walk through the valley of the shadow of death and first, and come out the other side and discover that forgiveness was nothing what I thought it was, that even what we call God or source is, I had a lot of issues with that because I was brought up Catholic, and I took that vengeful kind of God that is always out to get you. And I just figured, well, he finally got me. That's what this 10 years is about. I'm being punished because I'm such a terrible person and I have all these terrible feelings. And boy, that takes you round and round and round. So the only way out that I had the sense of was to learn what forgiveness was, and in the process learn about who I am. And I never thought I'd go back into healthcare because I spent the last many years thinking, well, what a terrible person I am for having all this negativity come through me. That it's like, where did that come from? But I couldn't pretend it wasn't there, and I couldn't pretend, I couldn't do any of the just rise above it, get over it, like people would say, just get over it. I wish I could just get over it, but I had to keep walking through it and see what it was, and keep choosing not to act on that, and keep choosing to listen to that voice that was still there that said, go this way, or go this way, or go this way, and keep putting one foot in front of the other. And then finally having the Zen saying, keep something to the effect of, keep walking forward no matter what, all fear is illusion. Because in the process of this, I faced every fear I knew I had, and a ton of fears I didn't know I had. And I had to come face to face with them and forgive myself for having fears. Forgive myself for being human. Forgive myself for having a human experience, intensely so, before I could even approach forgiving people who I thought had done terrible things to me, and should pay for it. Well, if I'd have read this about forgiveness, this is on page 945 of the workbook. What is forgiveness? Forgiveness recognizes what you thought your brother did to you has not occurred. Now, if I'd have read that sentence a year ago before going through the first part of the book, I'd have thought, are you nuts? It's not occurred. What the heck does that mean? It doesn't, in other words, we're getting into how much I was getting into, how much I was battling my own misperceptions of what life meant, of what our higher power is, of who I am in relationship to it all, of what oneness means, what it means to be connected to everything else. And I was fighting so hard with my misperceptions of all these things. And when I started to be able to, with the help of going through the Course in Miracles, to just drop things, lay down your arms, stop fighting, stop resisting, stop judging. And so it says, an unforgiving thought is one which makes a judgment that it will not raise to doubt, although it is not true. An unforgiving thought is one which makes a judgment. And how do you stop judging? Well, you forgive. How do you forgive? Well, I'm coming to see that what I think I thought isn't true. Who I thought I was is not, and what I thought happened and who I thought these people were. How could I possibly judge that? How could I possibly know who these people really were and what they act, why they did what they did, and was it right or wrong? And in the what I wrote up for this talk, I was reminded of a saying that someone once told me: that which is right in you is the starting point, and that which is wrong in you is beside the point. And then with the Course in Miracles, I realized it was going beyond putting things in terms of right or wrong is the whole point. That I don't have anywhere near the vision to pigeonhole things as right or wrong. And it's such a relief to know that I just don't know enough. I just don't know enough to be anybody's judge, including my own. Such a relief. And so that's when I came up over the edge and back to a new perspective of things, and where I could catch myself battling with my own misperceptions. And in that process, the rage dissolved and the hate went away. It was because it was replaced, not because I was fighting it anymore, but because it was replaced with compassion for my human experience, which was the precursor to compassion for the human experience of others. And we all do what we're going to do until we're done, and then we do something else. And I don't know why the people who decided they wanted what I had did what they did. I really don't. But I decided not too long ago that not only would I let them have the identity they stole, they could have everything else they took too. As long as they took it, I may as well decide to give it. And that felt better too. It's like, here, you can have it. I take away all claim to what I think I did, and was making a living at, because you think you have to make a living at what you do, and somebody took your ability to make your living away. And that's all. It was all misperception. It's all one way of looking at things that doesn't work. And this is what the Course in Miracles has been, step by step by step by step by step. I think it is just, I began to be able to look back at it and see the brilliance of how it takes you through seeing that ego self and letting it go. But letting it go by replacing it with what it's showing is authentic, what it's describing as as my authentic self. And eventually, not too long ago, I found out that I could actually work in healthcare again. I couldn't do it. I actually, while all this was going on and I had all these raging misperceptions and feelings moving through me, I intellectually knew what to do for people, but it didn't work anymore. I couldn't help anybody. And so I thought it was done. But just kind of by accident, a little over a year ago, it just kind of started up again. But it's such a different incarnation when I sit with people now and look to see how I can help. It's like a different person. Me is sitting there listening, and a different understanding of how to help is coming through much easier and much more clearly. And I'm like, wow, this is pretty nice. This is a whole lot easier than it used to be. And since I moved to this area, I came here. You remember when you guys had the tornado last summer? I came in on the tail end of the tornado that night. That's when I arrived, and was still pretty shaky. And who, during this time, I lost all confidence in myself. I lost all sense of myself. I lost my identity. But like I said, I came to find out that was a good thing, because there was a real identity there waiting to engage. And that's, since I've been here in this area, I've had a greater opportunity getting to know some of the people here. And I didn't, I was by myself this whole time until just recently. I mean, I didn't have any friends. I didn't have any colleagues anymore. My family had disappeared from my life, and everything was gone. And I never thought it'd come back again. But actually it was, I had gone to try to do some work somewhere for the first time in a while, and it didn't turn out. And I was pretty upset. And who would call within 5 minutes out of nowhere but Annabella called me. And right as this was happening, and I told her what was happening, and all of a sudden it occurred to me to ask her, do you think anybody has a room for rent where, in Pennsylvania there? Because I was in another state. I've been all over the United States trying to find a place to live and something to do again. And she said, yeah, through her found a place to land. And right now I'm staying with someone that most of you know, Greg Campisi and Susan Kuhn. So they have rented me a room in their house, which is lovely. And I call them the Wonder Family. They really are. So I have for the first time in a long time, like a nurturing, positive place to be. But even before that, something in me started to re-engage with living, because I felt like I wasn't living anymore. I was just gradually dying. But it turned around, and I was watching Gaia when I heard something about a couple of books that I read by David Hawkins, the Power versus Force, and then one called Letting Go. And he was the one that said to me in listening to his tapes and things about the Course in Miracles, and about it teaches forgiveness. And I said, oh God, that's what I need. But I had no idea how much I needed it and how different it was from what I thought it was, because I thought I'd finally be able to confer forgiveness on these awful people. Instead, they're not awful people anymore. And there's nothing to forgive, because I was just fighting with misperceptions, and life said, you're going to take this turn. And they just happened to be a vehicle that life used to give me this, you're going this way. And it's the answer to the question, to the searching you've done your whole life. You've been seeking for something, which I'm sure is familiar to everybody I'm speaking to. Seeking, but I didn't know what I was seeking for. And it was, okay, you're going to take this turn, and believe it or not, it's the answer to the question you've been asking your entire life. You have to walk through this and deal with it. And when you come out the other side, you'll have something authentic that you would never have otherwise, and that you would never have done voluntarily if you'd known what was coming. So life's pretty ingenious, even though I wish it had been a different way. Sometimes still, more and more, there's an overall appreciation for, I didn't intend to go into endocrinology, into hormones, into straightening people's hormones out. That was never, I never planned that. But when I went through the premature menopause from hell, I learned all about it. And then I was really able to help people. And so, although I don't really know why all this happened to the degree that it did, and the intensity and the length, and because it nearly killed me several times. It's actually a miracle, as in the Course of Miracles, that I'm here, that I'm alive, that I'm sane.
Would you like to take some questions, Shannon?
Sure,
You ready to do that?
I'm ready.